And now we introduce Sheriff Ken Stolle from our Sheriff and Corrections Department.
Mr. Mayor, before we have this presentation, I would like to say that I'm a member of the VBSO and I have a conflict of interest letter on file with Madam Clerk.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Ken, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How are you all doing today? It's always a pleasure appearing before you all. You all may not believe that, but it is. And I'm gonna take the gloves off a little bit today, if I can. And
It's kind of like castor oil, huh?
yeah, it's kind of something like that. But I'm gonna take the gloves off a little bit and tell you that for somebody that has spent a lifelong ambition and employment in law enforcement, the system is broken, and I think we all need to be aware of that. And so, you know, Paul just got up here, gave a great presentation. But my guess is Rocky and Paul and I and Sean and the other police officers are here, or the deputies here would agree that the system's broken. And when you think of what's happened this weekend, you know, we've known this is coming, and we you know, hope for the best. We want these people to come down here, have a great time, but we don't want the bad people coming down here and shooting guns and stuff. And our hands are pretty much limited until something bad happens. And so, you know, the tools that police officers and law enforcement officers use are the laws that they have from the General Assembly and the City Council to protect people. And so I don't see them giving Paul any more tools to protect the citizens of Virginia Beach since the last time we had a shooting down there. And Paul, are you aware of anything? Are you aware of anything that they've done differently in the General Assembly? And so I think that, you know, you have to realize that the system is considered a system, but it's not a system. It's an individual system. I'm paid to house criminals, not rehabilitate them, and I should be rehabilitating them. You know, if the state hadn't given me the $3 million to do the program that we have over there for mental health, we wouldn't be doing that if the city didn't have the money and support us on that. But, you know, to show you how the system's broken, we have $3 million to fund and I should have started off by saying I'll be happy to respond to any questions you have about my budget, but I think that
Ken, you're on a roll. Keep it going.
I'm on a roll now. So I think that you know, we have a situation where if the state hadn't given us that money, we wouldn't have had the program. We got the program now, but now we can't hire clinicians. We're down to one clinician. We're supposed to have 7 clinicians. So we have one person that treats, you know, 1/7 of the population we should be treating in the jail. And it's not y'all's fault, but it's, you know, we pay $53,000 for a clinician, and Centera pays $65,000 for a clinician. That's one of the reasons I want to try and get the Centera to take over our health care plan. Here it's about $9 million, $8 million, and you know, we can't compete with Centera. And so, you know, we have mental health needs, and we have medical needs in there that have to be addressed, and they're not being addressed. And so I get so frustrated at times. I've been thinking about running for the Senate again in the 22nd district. But I think that, you know, I'll hold off on doing that. But it's an open district, and I did very well in the last race and that program. But I think that what you have to realize is that, you know, I'm paid to house people, not treat them mentally. Commonwealth Attorney's Office is paid to get convictions. The police department are paid to make arrests, and the courts are paid to, you know, put the people in jail and not rehabilitate them. And so I don't, you know, everybody has their own things, and they're measured with success by their own statistics. But we're not working together, and I don't know how we do that other than the General Assembly, because we're a Dillon Rule state. But I think you all need to know that you know, the money that you're given is well spent, but it's not gonna make a damn bit of difference on the beachfront if somebody pulls out a gun and shoots a gun. You know, and what's going to happen is the police are going to be accused of not taking the action that's necessary when that happens, and there's no way they can prevent that. They haven't been given any tools by the General Assembly to do that, and I think you all need to realize that. And so I think that, you know, I'm very hopeful that we have a peaceful weekend, but I think that, you know, the days of police officers being the scapegoat is over, and I think that it goes for all law enforcement officers. You know, I think that we have a great program in the mental health program here. We went from 97% recidivism rate to 3% recidivism rate, which is unheard of, and we can't find the clinicians to staff the program. Now, it's the best program in the country, and we can't find the clinicians to staff the program. And it's just a damn shame that we can't do that, but we don't have the money to do that. And the state, you know, when I came here, the state was almost at 50% of the budget. Now they're at about 40% of our budget, and you all have picked up the rest, and I appreciate that. But the state has got to step up and pay a share of this. To give you another idea, history of the jail, when I came here in 1976, they just opened up the new jail, which is Building A in the jail, and the prison population was about 600, I think, 800, something like that, and they had 80% of the inmates were misdemeanors, and 20% were felons. Now it's just the opposite. 80% of our inmates, we have 1,200 inmates in there today, largest jail in Virginia. 84% of our inmates are felons, and 16% are misdemeanors. And that's, we have, my statistics here, right now we have what we classify as serious dangerous felons, 365. Last time I checked, we had 54 murderers in our jail. And people think it's just a small town jail. It's the largest jail in Virginia, and we're not doing anything to rehabilitate these people. And you got to realize that we're not making enough strides to rehabilitate these people. You got to realize that of 1,081 prisoners we have today, 926 are felons, and 159 are misdemeanors. And so, you know, our jails aren't set up for felons. The state has six different classifications for the level of offense, danger, and stuff like that, and they have 6 levels of prisons they can put them in. We've got one. We've got one level of prison. We got all these prisoners in the A building that are the serious prisoners, and I'm not complaining about the job. I ran for it, and I'm going to do it. But I think it's important that you realize that we're not making any headway in this. And so I think that, you know, what we need to do is get together with VML and VACO and the other cities and counties and towns across Virginia and say, what do our police officers really need to make us safe? And they don't need more guns. They don't need more body cams. They need laws that give the police officers the right to protect people and recognize the difference between some of the constitutional requirements that people have imposed in the past and constitutional requirements for the future. And so I think that, you know, it's a shame. I've always been a Second Amendment advocate, but I think it's a shame that we can't exercise some control over what happens down there. We have to wait till a shooting starts before we can step in and take aggressive action. And we should be able to take aggressive action from the very beginning. And I'm not criticizing the police department. I think they've done a wonderful job, and we have a great chief that I love working with now, and Scene is great to work with, and our 2 departments get along better than they ever have. But I think it's important that you all recognize some of these concerns that we have. And what I think what we need to do is, this is just me bitching or going on about what's happening, but you know, I think what we need to do is take and put the judges in charge of the criminal justice system, so that when they sentence the very person that sentenced somebody to jail.
That's right, Sheriff.
What was that?
You got a judge back there.
Okay.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
All right, yeah. The very person.
Judge, you're out of order.
Escort him out. Yeah.
I've been wanting to do that for years.
Yeah. Well, the very person that sentenced somebody to jail loses control over the time they go to jail, and bureaucrats make the decision when they get out based on God only knows what. And you know, the parole board has been in and out and in and out, and the judges should, you know, if we need more judges, we ought to make more judges, but we ought to have some control over the prisoners when they go to jail, so that the right people can come out. And we sentence people to jail based on punishment, not on fixing problems. They should go to jail for programs like the mental health program and the other programs, as opposed to going for a duration of time. Do an indeterminate amount of time so the person completes what he needs to do to be successful on the street. For every one person we rehabilitate in a jail, you're stopping multiple crimes from happening in the community, and you're saving a police officer's conflict and arrest with different people, and you're saving me a space in the jail. We've got to do more than we're doing, but I think that I'm not going to ask you to build any new jails or anything else like that, but I think what we have to do is we have to be smart with the people that we're afraid of and incarcerate them, and the people that we're mad at, we have to find alternative means of incarceration so that they're not doing the taxpayers' dollars. Now, I didn't mean to go into all this, but once I got on a roll, it was kind of hard to stop, and I do like appearing before you all, but you know, I think my budget is pretty well fixed between the city managers and Kevin and you all, and I really appreciate everything that you all have done for us, and God knows you have done a lot for us, and I really appreciate that, but I thought I'd come up here and give you my piece for a little bit.
And Ken, I've known you for a number of years. You really got to learn how to express yourself.
Yeah, I hide my emotions very well.
But if I could say, you know, by having, you know, the Secretary of Public Safety, Bob Mosier, come down, the conversation we had this morning, we're going to require enabling legislation throughout the Commonwealth, to do what we got to do. You're right. We got to give tools, to the folks that are on the front line to do their jobs and, be safe. Be safe. And, there's always going to be critics about, the techniques. But if it saves one life, is it worth it? That's my point.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I agree with you 100%, but I think that, the politicians got to realize, and the president of the company excluded on this, because I think you all have realized this, that just defending the police when they take action is not that helpful. It helps in the long run, but what really helps is to figure out what they need and give them the tools to do that, and that's what I think you're talking about. And that's what we tried to do when I was in Richmond, and I don't know what's going on with them last year. They went crazy up there, but I think that this year they kind of repealed some of the stuff that they did wrong last year. But I think that if Paul comes up here and tells you, or the city manager comes up here and tells you, we haven't done anything to help the police officers deal with this problem on the beachfront. We haven't done a damn thing. And I don't know. I don't think you all can do it. I think it's got to be at the legislator side. But I think from being up there, you've got to think of what you need and tell them what you need so you can get it done. And I appreciate again the opportunity to be here. I'll be happy to answer any questions on my budget, which is what I should have been talking about. But yeah.
Well, we were your captive audience today.
Yeah, sorry, Ken, you're out of time. I'm only. Okay, Linwood.
Thank you. Well, Sheriff, I agree with you, and I hope this is just the beginning of that conversation. And I know the mayors are looking at a regional approach to crime safety, but we've got to include our state delegates and legislators in this effort because, as we know, all laws come from the Commonwealth that deal with these sort of things. Also concerned about the funding issues from the state that you brought up, particularly in a year where they're flush with money, and yet we're picking up more of the tab here, and that we've got to start communicating more with our state legislators about that. But I wanted to talk about the tour I took of your jail a couple weeks ago, which when I got home it never looked so good. That's got to be one of the toughest jobs in the world as a deputy in that jail, and it's a very sobering and eye-opening experience. And during that tour, you told me that you're down 51 deputies, so like other departments, you're struggling too. But you're also serving as sort of augmenting our police department right now because they're down 91 officers. And I know you'll be deploying some of your deputies. And I'm concerned about the money you have in terms of overtime pay for your deputies for providing the services until hopefully one day we get up and fully staffed and what have you. So could you talk a little bit about the overtime for your deputies?
We have, when the police department requests that we go assist them, we go on port and starboard watches, which means one team stays on days, one team stays at night, and work 12-hour shifts. We typically work 12-hour shifts, but that's how we draw our extra deputies. And so and we probably got, I think, 3 volunteers to come down there this time, and so we had to designate the other 37 people that were sitting down there Friday night and 57 people that were designating the Saturday and Sunday afternoon and night. And so that eats into we have to pay those people, and this isn't your fault, it's just nature. We're down clinicians, we're down people in every walk of life, teachers, everything. But what happens with us is we have to pay them overtime and order them to work it. And so what I was trying to, and this is hard on morale and it's hard on the people because they're working 12-hour shifts already, and if we go to port and starboard watches, then they got to stay on those port and starboard watches till we free up the people. And so, but we're not able to get the deputies down there to do that. And so I've got to order them down there, and that's a real hard thing to do. We had to cancel all the leave like the police department did, cancel all the vacation leave and everything else. And so, what I was hoping that we could do is try and get a different pay raise or not a pay raise, but an incentive for the police officers and deputies to work overtime at the beachfront. And it's a hard job to do on top of the other job, and I was hoping that you could consider going to 250 or 2.5% of the overtime, 2.5 times the overtime pay, as opposed to the 1.5 times. And that would be an incentive for the deputies to work there, incentive for the police officers to work there. And I don't mind, I wouldn't mind if you extend it to all the firefighters, but they're not the ones that, they're on call and they're not the ones having to walk the beach down there. So I don't have any, I think if you extend it to them, they're not going to use it near as much as the police department and the sheriff's department's going to use it. But something's got to give, and I think that at some time or another, if we get to 70 or 80 deputies down, we're not going to be able to provide the assistance to the police department that we are now. But I think some recognition needs to be given to these guys that work 40 hours or 60 hours at the sheriff's office and go down and work another 12 hours at the police department. And so then when I'd ask the council at the appropriate time consider that, and just as a short gap, fix.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Okay, anyone else?
So that's not in the budget now.
No, it's not in the budget.
That's not, is this something that council would like me to look at?
It needs
Yeah.
to be on the list.
Yeah.
All right.
I think this is definitely a topic for our reconciliation discussions. Okay, anybody else?
Thank you.
Ken, once again, you are just a speaker of the truth, and you are always willing to have the tough conversations. And the thing is, we just got to get back to this thing called mutual respect. Policing, whether it be with the police or the sheriff's department and everything, we got to get that respect back. We got to get back to being, and I'll say it, a nation of laws that, that are respected, to have a civil society. Like I said, Ken, we're not going to be able to do it, nationally, but by golly, in the Commonwealth, we got to get with our senators. We got to get with our delegation. And I think right now, if we get, the mayors, the elected body members and everything, just getting, leaning on the people that, make the laws, but also give the tools to what law enforcement needs. That's the only way we're going to stem this tide.
I agree, Mr. Mayor, and what we call that in the legal profession is the rule of law. And I think the people that have gone, I think that the rule of law is being eroded tremendously. And I understand we've made some great strides here in Virginia Beach. When I went up to the Senate in 1992, we didn't have one black judge in Virginia Beach. And now we have two black judges, a male and a female, in the circuit court. Why is that important? Because if I'm a black man and I walk into the circuit court and I don't see a black person in there, I'm not going to feel like it's my court system. And then how can you expect someone who doesn't feel like it's their court system to abide by those laws and abide by the rule of law? You can't. And if they lose respect for the courts and lose the feeling that the courts are there to protect them too, then you're not going to have the rule of law anymore, and you're going to have chaos on the streets.
Appreciate that. Anybody else? Ken, if you can convey to everyone that works with you, for you, that wears the uniform or in a support role. Yeah, if I could just bring up one item that you brought up at the meeting that last Friday that we had. There was somebody, I believe he was from Isle of Wight, and they said, we don't really have a high crime problem. But let me tell you, we had an arrest the other day, and it was a patient that required mental services. We had to drive like 5 hours to get him to a facility and stay with that person for 2 days. The officer had to stay with the person for 2 days. Mental health has to be on the cutting edge of anything we do going forward. If we're going to have to fix some societal problems with families, incarcerated people making the transition and doing things, we got to step to the plate. And I applaud Mr. Bellucci, for taking that banner and running with it. That's where one of the first steps has to be.
Well,
so I concur with you.
Mr. Mayor, I'll tell you that when I first became the sheriff, I went to the CSBs and I asked them to take over the mental health in the jail, and they refused to do it. And I said, about 30% of my people my inmates are mentally ill. They said, no, about 10% of them are mentally ill. And when we finally negotiated terms for them to come over, when I got that money we just turned that money over to CSBs. It turned out that they started doing the check-in, and they thought that 80% of my inmates were mentally ill. 80% of the inmates are mentally ill, which means we could be doing everything wrong. We can't rehabilitate the mentally ill, and we shouldn't treat the criminally ill. And so you have to rehabilitate the criminals and treat the mental illness. And so I think that, what I was really excited about the program that we started is for the first time we had a ruler of how much this was going to cost us. You know, when I was up in the General Assembly, we didn't have any idea how much mental health was, and when you don't have any idea what the cost is, you don't solve the problem. Well, we showed them how to solve the problem, and so they can figure out the cost, extrapolate that out, and figure out what the cost is statewide, and it's not near what they were thinking it was going to be. And so I think that, you know, as long as we keep that program running, the state will have something they can focus on. And I hate to keep going on and wasting y'all's time here, but I think that
wasting our time, Ken.
I think it's very important that the mentally ill be at the forefront of any correctional, you know, re-engineering at all.
And, you know, let's be honest, the COVID really exacerbated things. You know, this problem existed, and, you know, when the city was talking to the governor about opening the beaches, you know, it was brought up, and, you know, I think Governor Northam truly appreciated it. Yes, we had to protect the vulnerable with the disease, but, you know, the collateral consequences, the increase in anxiety, depression, suicides, alcohol, drug abuse, domestic violence, and, you know, kids being home and creating that, you know, tension and everything else, you know, those are the consequences we're going to be paying for, you know, quite some time.
We are.
You know, Michael, did you have your hand?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
I did, but I changed my mind.
Okay.
But nothing against you, Sheriff.
Okay, all right.
I just don't have a question anymore.
Okay, good.
I think you covered all the bases, Ken.
I think I did. I complained about everything I wanted to today, and I appreciate you all taking the hostility there. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.